It's pretty simple in a way, Matt. It's giving your word and keeping it. And when you can't keep it, I mean, if we could give our word and keep it 100% of the time, that's the best way to build trust.
Sure.
But the truth is, you and I are both not always going to be 100% on our word. We're imperfect people. We
Sure.
might accidentally double book and we don't get online together. But the best way, do what you say you're going to do. And when you don't, when there's a breakdown, own the breakdown and say, Matt, I told you I'd be here at 1 o'clock. I forgot all about it. I broke down. Keep the excuse short. Keep the story about what dog chewed up what homework paper super short, and say, I recommit, and then recommit and show up and be there for the person. I think that's one of the best ways to build trust.
Hello, and welcome to the Elevator Careers Podcast, sponsored by the Allred Group. I am your host, Matt Allred. In this podcast, we talk to the people whose lives and careers are dedicated to the vertical transportation industry to inform and share lessons learned, building upon the foundation of those who have gone before to inspire the next generation of elevator careers. When talent is mission critical, call the Allred Group. With industry expertise, top talent, and exceptional customer service, you need the Allred Group on your side. Your priority is their priority. Call now, 404-890-0445. Welcome to today's episode, where we explore the critical intersection of leadership, communication, and organizational success. This is part 2 of my interview with Tom Esch, a renowned expert in workplace dynamics and conflict resolution. Tom brings over 2 decades of experience in helping leaders understand the nuanced people stuff that can make or break a business. We'll dive into how leadership skills, emotional intelligence, and conscious communication can transform workplace culture, prevent costly mistakes, and drive organizational performance. Whether you're a business owner, manager, or aspiring leader, this conversation offers invaluable insights into creating more effective, human-centered workplaces. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. I'm excited to have you back. I got a chance to read your book and kind of dig into some of those things you were saying, and I think it's fascinating. It certainly applies to the work at hand, and you called it personal accountability and power, and how contractors can build a stronger safety culture, which I think is fascinating. So certainly safety is interesting, but the culture piece, right? That safety is actually a culture, I think is I just hadn't thought of it that way. But in it, you give 3 points to growing up and taking safety seriously. You're talking about putting on big boy pants and being a good communicator, staying focused on the job. Talk to us about each of those as we just kind of dive into this topic.
Sure. Well, each of those kind of goes back to a story that happened. All those big boy pants, good communicator, stay focused on the job. Those are all actual things that business owners said. Probably now, 10 years ago, 10, 11 years ago here in Minnesota, southern Minnesota, I was going to be leading a demo saw safety program for an underground contractor. That's a saw that weighs about 30 pounds, has a lot of RPMs and power, runs a 14 or 12-inch diamond blade, and potentially very dangerous tool. So I was demoing this tool, which I had sold for at least 12 years and knew a lot about. And the owner was talking to the guys, his company of maybe 80, 90 guys at the annual meeting. And he said, we had too many injuries last year, guys. He said, some guy yelled at some guy, and then the guy who got yelled at got injured. And put on your big boy pants. And he said, be a good communicator, put on your big boy pants, do the right thing, grow up. Basically, you're sort of scolding them in a way, but he was also giving a really interesting message. And I'm sitting there listening to this owner, I'm about to ready to get up to give technical safety. And I'm thinking, this guy's talking about culture. He's talking about communication. He's
Sure.
talking about emotional maturity. He's also talking about, he didn't say it, but he was basically talking about what happens to the brain when we get yelled at. Unless you're a Buddhist monk, which are proven to have some of the least reactive brains by a study at the University of Wisconsin-Madison years ago, or you're really emotionally mature and not afraid of this other person, you're going to react. And basically, you're going to go into a fight or flight state. The amygdala, the reptilian brain, gets activated when we're yelled at or when we're threatened in any way. And getting yelled at can be a threat, even if somebody's just raising their voice on a job site. Hey, you have this little, now men are great at hiding it. They almost never look panicked. But if you put a functional MRI machine on the brain, you would show almost no activity in the prefrontal cortex.
Hmm. Okay.
So I'm sitting there listening with all that I know about brains and communication and emotional intelligence, and I'm like, this owner is talking about culture and what I'm passionate about doing, which is helping people in high intensity, dangerous situations communicate with more care, with more humanity, with more grace.
So I think let me pause you for a second. I think what you're saying is that if I am not communicating with the pause, sorry, with the grace and and I go out and I just kind of attack somebody with my words, and they're more likely to respond with the reptilian brain versus a conscious, oh, let me think through it type of response, which is, if they're not thinking, in other words, they're just reacting, it's not going to be an ideal situation. Is that fair to say?
Very fair. And there's a time for a yell. If your 4-year-old is crossing an 8-lane highway, that's the right time to yell if you can't get to them and scoop them
Right.
up. There's a time for yelling, and there's a time to kick in and have that reptilian brain go, but not on a job site in the middle of the day where, in construction, as you know, Matt, yelling and tempers are pretty common. People are under high stress, deadlines, traffic, trouble. Their home life might be a mess, and they bring all that, and boom, they're yelling at somebody,
Well,
and
and if they're operating heavy or dangerous equipment, the less thinking is not a good combination there.
exactly. And the owner was basically saying this guy yelled at the guy who got yelled at got injured because he
Mm.
wasn't thinking right. Like the owner knew enough he didn't spell it all out, but he's like, yelling isn't a good way to create a safe work culture, guys. Put your big boy pants on, which you could say is, kind of a slam in a way, but that was a clever way to say it. I
Tell me,
thought. I
tell me
thought it
how
was.
you interpret that. I mean, you talked about the Buddhists and most. I think that's awesome that they've worked and maybe meditated enough that their minds aren't as reactive
Yes.
in that way. But how would you interpret putting your big boy pants on and responding in more mature ways, perhaps?
Yeah, he's saying, um, be an adult. Don't yell like a little, you know, kid on the parking lot who's mad at his buddy. Put on your mature adult pants. Operate from the adult ego state, right?
Thank you.
Not that, field transactional analysis, you got your adult ego state. Then above that, you got your parental, and then you got your rebel reactive child. So you got sort of the angry parent yelling at the rebel child. Instead of the big boy pants would be the adult ego state, the mature ego state. You can still have some emotion, but not yelling or demeaning someone, which often happens. Hey, dumb ass, what are you doing? Right? That's very common
Well,
phrase
and it's
in
very
construction.
condescending, right? I think what I'm taking away from what you're saying is approach them like an equal. You got two adults here.
Yeah.
You don't need to try to, offend somebody or put them down in order to get a message across. Maybe they do need to pay attention to safety, or maybe they do need to put on their hard hat, or whatever the case may be.
Yes.
You don't have to pretend like you're better than them in
Yeah.
order to convey that message.
Yep. Better, smarter, stronger. The seniority, and of course, it was a higher ranking guy yelling
Yeah.
at a lower ranked guy. And that's a whole nother piece of my work and my thinking.
Second question, Tom, is you talk a lot about rank, which I was fascinated by this idea of power. And again, you use the word rank and how that affects. Um, I guess initially I wanted to see if you could just kind of dissect power, seniority, and rank.
Sure. There's a lot of definitions of power. There's a lot
Sure.
of definitions of rank.
As you see it, yeah, as you're
Seniority is the simplest word there, but I would pair seniority with rank, and I would pick, say, Rollo May's definition of power is the ability to cause or prevent a change, which I think
okay.
is awesome and simple. Power is just the ability to cause or prevent a change. And rank is a different animal. Rank is kind of the way power gets structured. Think of like the pecking order with chickens,
Sure.
or the structure within a military division. You're going to have rank. You're going, the Catholic Church, which is my background, as you know, very hierarchical, male organizations, strict hierarchy. That there's a rank. So, what is rank? Rank is simply it's a lot of things, but in my approach and study of rank is informed by one of my teachers, Dr. Arnold Mindell, who has a very expansive definition of rank. So it's this huge his idea of rank is that it's both the pecking order, the positional, ranking, the position
Sure.
that you have within an organization,
The
but it's
title, in other
also
words.
your internal rank, your internal strength, your internal power, in a sense, to be able to influence other people. So if I am maybe low ranked on a job site, maybe I've only been there a month, but I'm confident. Maybe I'm a former college football player. I'm big. I'm outspoken. I'm gregarious and I'm funny and I'm pretty good at what I'm doing. I'm going to have quick rank on that job site,
Sure.
partly because of my personality, not because of my position. I'm the new man. I'm the low man on the totem pole. I'm going to get the crappy jobs. So power is the ability to cause, prevent change. Rank is the way power gets structured in organizations or in an individual. And, you know, there's lots of different types of rank, but I'd say rank and seniority are kind of similar, especially positional rank is almost the same as what we call seniority in construction. It's how many years have you been around? How good are you at driving a backhoe? How much do the other guys respect you? When I was selling supplies, I was one of the least ranked in the warehouse when I ran the warehouse because I didn't know how to run a forklift very skillfully. I mean, I did run it, but
Mm-hmm.
there was always two or three other guys who could run it way better than I could. So I had low rank with the forklift, and I eventually did crash it into the garage, Matt. And I was
Yep.
quickly moved into
I was
sales.
gonna say they took your license away, right? It's like, all right,
Which is I was
no more
quickly
forklift.
moved into sales, which was good. But is that useful at all with the power, the rank, the seniority?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's intriguing for me is you've brought in some different categories and some different, it's not just about my title on the org chart. If people like me, if people respect me, I have more power to like you say,
Yeah,
to influence a change, to maybe even push back on the boss and say, boss, we don't want to do it that
yeah,
way. Or even
that's
if I'm
right.
the boss, if I maybe don't have a lot of confidence in my own decision making, my guys are going to outrank me, or in a way, right? They're gonna
Yeah,
out overpower,
yeah,
just have more power. And I think we see that in different organizations, different times, and I've heard different inmates are running the prison, whatever. You've heard different phrases.
sure.
I guess my question in regard to that, specifically around safety, how have you seen safety affected by some of these power dynamics, rank and the sort?
Sure. Yeah, very, in some moments, very dramatically and deeply. I have a number of stories, and if you've seen my book, there's a story of a man who was killed in a trench because the general superintendent made a change in the plan for how they were going to retrieve these 5 trench boxes in a 30-foot deep trench.
Mm.
And everybody knew it was dangerous. Everybody knew it would have been safer to do it mechanically with the backhoe and rigging them up, which they could have done. But he thought it was quicker and cheaper to go down and do it by hand. So he said, I'm going down. And a laborer said, I'll go with you, boss. And a Hispanic guy went down and he was lower. And so when that soil collapsed, he was the one killed.
Mm.
No one spoke up. And, you know, I know the safety guy, and I know that they had a really good safety plan. They had really good pre-construction planning, even though it was a complex, difficult job. They changed the plan. Nobody spoke up. And the safety guy that I know went to each person, and said, Matt, did you know that was a dangerous decision? Yes, I did. Did you speak up and say anything? No, I didn't. Joe, did you know that that was dangerous? Yes, I did. Did you speak up? No, I didn't. Sam, did you know that? He went to every person, more than 10. And out of that developed a whole program that Caterpillar now sells called Speak Up, Listen Up, which is basically a program designed to help people speak up, help people listen up. I'd say it's a very basic, fundamental program. It doesn't get to the deeper reasons why people don't speak up. You could train people all day long. Come on, Matt, just speak up.
Sure.
Well, why on that job site didn't anyone feel able to say, wait a minute, boss, I'm not sure that's a great decision.
Right.
Let's rethink it. Right. And why is that? Because the unwritten rule in construction, as everybody knows, is you don't speak up to the boss. You don't interrupt or try to influence the person in authority in many cultures. Now that's changing slowly. And in the best cultures, that's very different. And it is more open to feed. There are cultures around. I've been in some of those too. But yeah, the rank thing, it can be huge. You might have a brand new guy who really knows a lot about something, but he doesn't feel he has doesn't have the influence to say anything. And he can quickly get cut down, right? He might try to speak up. What do you know, man? What do you know? Get out of here, and he's going to navigate those relationships carefully. And generally you respect these unwritten rules. They're like stronger than the written rules.
Sure. Well, it's risky, right? I mean, if I'm the low man on the totem pole and maybe I haven't even been there very long and I'm challenging, the foreman that's been at it for 25 years, I mean, huge amount of risk for me to say,
Huge amount of risk.
boss, yeah, I don't think that's safe. Well, I have no credibility, especially if I'm new to the force, and it's like you're being lazy, right? There's all kinds of reasons why I would now be suspect. We'll just get down there and do it, right? And so, um,
yeah,
I guess it's human nature, right? That these dynamics are there, and I appreciate you just kind of pointing them out and really helping me see them, because I've been in those types of situations, but I think it's got to become conscious in order for anybody to start speaking up, right? Why didn't they speak up? Well, I've been in situations where, yeah, I probably should have spoken up and didn't. And so it's almost got to be and I guess that's part of what you do, right? Is you train different groups, different companies, different workforces to not only to speak up, but you got to train the boss, the foreman, whoever, to be willing to listen once somebody does speak up.
Yes. Yes. And there's a great book that covers this better than my book. Have you read the book by Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers?
If I have, it's been quite a while, because I know
There's a
I do
brilliant
remember reading some of his stuff.
There's a brilliant chapter on what happened in the Korean airline world some 20 plus years ago, where there was a number of crashes. I want to say 7 crashes in a short period of time.
Ouch.
10 years or less. And they were about ready to go out of business. and they brought in some consultants to figure out what's going on in the cockpits, that these planes are crashing, so many, and people being killed. And they realized that there was nothing close to any feedback between the captain and the co-pilots.
Mm.
And they know it's a best practice in almost any culture, construction or the airplane culture. If you can have feedback back and forth and open conversation, you're going to have more safety as a general idea. Most people would instantly get that. Yes. Hey, boss, there's fog there. Hey, captain, are you aware of that? Hey, I'm noticing this. Hey, the fuel gauge is this.
So you're saying
And
even within the cockpit, the co-pilot wasn't comfortable talking to the guy next to him and saying, "Hey, there's a telephone pole and you're about to hit it," or whatever the
not
case may be.
not at all. In the Korean world, as I've understand it through Gladwell's eyes, and I'm pretty sure he's a pretty smart cookie. It's probably not a perfect story, but I think it's accurate that in Korean culture, I know that there are 9 layers of social status or rank.
Wow. Okay.
If you know Korean culture, there's 9 different layers, very clear, almost like a caste system. You're the top. And in the cockpit, the pilot is kind of like at the top of the
Oh, for
pecking
sure.
order. The co-pilots are kind of like nobodies. The captain is like a god in that pre, you know, the culture of long ago in the Korean air world. It's changed quite a bit since they made an intervention, and they said we've got to change the culture in the cockpit, and they did it. It took a lot
Mm.
of money and a
Mm.
lot of time and a lot of energy. They're basically rewriting the cultural rules. When you're in the cockpit here, when you're flying a plane, get rid of those 9 layers of hierarchy or whatever layers are within that cockpit. You're all equal in terms of seeing, noticing things. The captain still has status. He's got rank to make certain decisions, but you have every right to give your input, every right to say, Captain, I'm not sure that's right. Hey, wait a minute. I think we're going to need to slow down. We're coming in at a tight landing here with a lot of wind, on a short runway. I think we should change it to this or that. So, yeah, a very dramatic situation that Gladwell retells, and I retell it in my book because I think it's fascinating. And the idea that you can change a culture dramatically in the interest of safety. And of course, then the results for many, many years were awesome. No crashes, no near miss crashes, like phenomenal results. So that's interesting to me. And it translates directly to construction to me, where you have this hierarchy, and you have sort of the general superintendent, the foreman, who can act or be like a kind of god, and the ego gets mixed up in the I'm the man, and and it is mostly men. The women are coming in. Women are coming in and interrupting things in an exciting way, in my mind. Um, anyway, it's fascinating to me, the
Yeah, thank you.
Korean
Thank
story.
you. Hey everyone, thank you for listening. This is Matt with a brief message from our sponsor. The Allred Group has been recruiting elevator industry talent for over 14 years. If you are looking to grow your business and hire great people, contact the Allred Group at allredgroup.com. That's ALLREDGROUP.com, and talk with Matt and his team about how they can assist you. And now, back to the show. Now, I've heard some within the elevator industry some interesting stories of the mechanic has his helper, and the helper's maybe a 1-2 year apprentice or something, and I know that safety's come a long way, right? But
Mm-hmm.
to your point, it has to be not only taught but continually taught that there is a time, and if you don't feel safe, right, you got to speak up. You got to be willing to
Mm-hmm.
say it, or if you are worried about somebody else, there's a reason you're feeling that way. You can't let that stop you from, you can't let your fear stop you from speaking up and saying, hey, here's my concern. This is not safe, or we don't have the right equipment, or whatever the case may be. And yeah, it's an interesting journey, and I'm sure, yeah, you see that all the time in the construction space. So obviously this rank, the power, as we're talking about, certainly is true for safety. I'm curious, how have you seen it also affect, like directly affect bottom line, maybe even outside of safety?
Oh, how does rank impact culture outside of safety?
Yeah, or even the bottom line, right? So I think you had mentioned something about in a previous conversation, something about, somebody's about to lose a contract because of one of the people on their team, and they had to have a conversation. Do you remember which one I'm talking about?
I do, yeah. Yeah. The high-ranking estimator who sometimes made people feel stupid, um, and barked at people now and again. Pretty high rank because he's landing the big projects. The multi-million-dollar projects are being landed. He's landing them, and he's pretty high rank dude. And no one's at great risk of getting run over by a skid steer, crushed by a truck, or falling off the 20th floor with this guy because he's estimating. He's in the office, but there's serious risk of losing projects, and partly because he didn't manage his emotions very well, and he was very much old school, you know, bark at people, put people down. I mean, another client had a guy, a senior foreman, who would regularly like get the paperwork from guys at the end of the day and say, "This is bull crap," and he'd tear it up, fold it in a ball, and throw it in the garbage. Some guys work, reporting the job, writing numbers down or estimating. But this estimator was clearly misusing his rank. The owner kind of afraid to interrupt him, afraid to disturb him, like many owners. And sometimes the worst actors are the best producers, right? The
A good
owner's
way
like,
with
that guy's
sure.
great, high performers, right? And who is it? Somebody talks about don't call them high performers, call them jerks, because I mean they might make you a lot of money, but they're not really high performers. In the modern world, the high performers are all of that, and they have good people skills, and they treat people fairly, and they're good at not making others feel stupid. Or if they bark at anyone, it better be for the right reason, and it better be carefully done. And he wasn't doing that. The owner was afraid to talk to him, and I coached that owner to eventually talk to this guy. This is good 8 months ago or so. Now they had one conversation, and as I hear it, there's been no bad behavior since. Now sometimes that bad behavior just goes underground for a while and comes back up worse, and sometimes people actually make a shift, and that's enough to just have an intervention and to have somebody say something.
Well,
And okay, yeah.
yeah, I think maybe he didn't realize just how close they were to losing the contract, or maybe he didn't realize just how, impactful that behavior was on, on the client or whatever the case was. So,
Yes,
um,
yeah. He was not real aware of his own impact. And this goes with high rank, Matt. It's very interesting to me. The higher your rank, often the lower your awareness for how you impact other people. And it kind of makes intuitive sense. Also, the king is not necessarily paying attention to everybody's feelings back at the castle, or the peasants down in the
sure.
village. He's just trying to keep the enemies away, keep the people fed, keep the queen happy. Like, he's not worried. So in this case, this high ranking guy, estimator, wasn't worried about the feelings of the other young people. He wasn't worried about, he underestimated, the feelings of the client. They were trying to engage in this several multi-million
Sure.
dollar different projects. And the owner finally had the talk with the guy. And the owner would occasionally have to jump in, intervene, and do something to save a project, a
Yeah,
very, very lucrative project. And he's not having to do that anymore because the guy is acting with more awareness and being more, professional in his behavior
that's
and
awesome.
careful.
I think that to me, that's a huge insight, just awareness, because, as we're talking through this, I'm thinking through, different times in my life. I was on it was like a nonprofit, but I was on the board. And I remember being surprised at times that people would, approach me with almost like deferentially, like I had some kind of power. It was like it was just for me, it surprised me that
Yes.
that that I had this power because I didn't know it. So I think just making people aware sometimes, like you talk about the higher your rank, the less aware. Um, I think as parents, I think as a business owner, it surprised me sometimes just how much of an impact I have on some of my employees. And it's almost kind of scary sometimes to think, oh, wow, if I say this wrong, if I react wrong, if I put too much emotion into what I say, wow, I can do a lot more damage than I even realized. I didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah. The role that we're in has more power than we know. And it's almost like the higher we are ranked and the higher the role, the less awareness we have of how much people, you used a key word that I haven't said yet, and that's deference. We give deference, we give special treatment to. I also didn't use the word privilege. I don't love the word privilege. It gets mixed up with racial conversations and different things, but rank is really connected to privilege. You have certain privileges.
Yeah.
You're on the board of this nonprofit. You have access to information and to people making decisions. And even if it's a little nonprofit, it might be significant. And the people trying to get the grant money from you or whatever the work is are like, we need that, $100,000 food stamp program,
Sure.
Matt. And they're going to give you deference. They're going to show you the nicest seat in the place. They're going to buy you a really expensive glass of wine if they can afford it. And somebody else not on the board, like, who are they? They're
Right.
not. So yeah, the phrase I like better than privileges with rank is unconscious advantages. Now, sometimes they're unconscious, sometimes they're conscious. But this was created by a friend of mine named Tony Signorelli. He's a writer and a thinker and a former corporate consultant, super smart, super successful guy. And he talks about unconscious advantages, which I think takes a little bit of the stigma or there's
Sure.
some connotations around the word privilege, like, because you might say to me, Tom, well, you're a business owner, you're a upper middle class guy, boy, are you privileged? And I'm like, what do you mean privileged? I grew up marginal. I work my butt off. I work every day. This is what a lot of entrepreneurs will say. What do you mean?
Sure.
You're a white guy. You're privileged. You're a middle upper class white guy. You have whatever you want. You drive a nice car. You go on vacation. You're privileged. You're like, privileged. I don't come from wealth. I'm not privileged. Almost
Sure. Sure.
nobody
Sure.
thinks Elon Musk. You're privileged, Elon. No, I'm not. I work for this. I have billions of dollars. Yeah, but I'm not privileged. Does he have unconscious advantage? You bet your booty. As do I. As do
Well,
I.
and it's easy, I think, to look at others and judge what we think is their unconscious advantage, and yet I think because it's unconscious, and like I said a few minutes ago, I didn't realize, didn't know, still don't know that I fully understand what mine are, and what's the responsibility I have in how I act and how I come across to affect others' lives. And I'm curious, as we kind of tease this apart a little bit, if someone who has a lot of rank, let's say somebody approaches them and says, hey, I don't feel comfortable about this feels unsafe for it, you know um do you ever feel like they lose credibility or lose respect if they actually listen to someone lower in rank? Or do you think the opposite is the case? If the boss actually listens to the newbie, does he lose face in front of the team? Or what are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
yeah. It depends what school that boss is going to. If that boss is going to the old school, absolutely. Uh, Listening to a lower ranked person lowers your power in the old school. Of
Okay.
course, it does. It also, if you're encouraging me to be aware of my emotions and be respectful of emotions and sensitive to emotions or somebody's disposition in the old school, that doesn't fly. That doesn't grow anybody's rank. But in the new school, however we define that, I think you know what I mean. In the new
Sure.
school, where there's younger people or more forward thinking, or I would say scientifically based
Uh-huh.
thinking leaders that know emotional intelligence is real. It's one of the most important things out there. And if they have power intelligence, which is a phrase coined by one of my teachers, I have to mention Dr. Julie Diamond in case anyone's listening or wants to really read a great book. Julie Diamond wrote a book called Power, a User's Guide.
Mm.
Julie is a huge proponent of this, the same stuff, using your power with as much awareness as you can. And in the new school, you grow your power by listening to lower rank, depending on how you listen. And if you're the top ranked general superintendent with 80 people on a job, you can't listen to everybody all day long.
Sure.
But somebody really sharp that maybe they're new, but they're really sharp and they have an insight, and you listen to that, and that makes a difference in the job. Maybe it's more profitable, it's safer. I think in the new school, it's like the Navy SEALs. When the Navy SEALs are done with an operation, I'm told, they sit in a circle and first they take their stripes off at the door, and then they sit in a circle and they act as if there's no rank.
Mm. Okay.
And it's one reason I think the Navy SEALs have a pretty impressive culture, and they're highly touted everywhere as a really incredible culture, getting incredible results, not all the time, but often, partly because they debrief in a way where there's no rank, there's no retaliation. Anyone can speak honestly to anyone, and they're encouraged to do so. And
Sure.
the leaders, who I would say are in the new school, know that they will grow their power and their rank and grow their strength and grow their capacity by listening to the younger people, to the newer people, I'll tell you one more story that comes from my Catholic background, that the Benedictine monks that have been around more than 1,000 years. The Benedictines had a rule that when they got together for their meetings, their community meetings, which they had regularly, they would let the young monks speak first. The novice monks got the floor first, which I think is brilliant, because if the old seasoned monk speaks and says, well, we need to do this, or that's the way this, the new monks are going to be like, well, I'm not going to say anything. That
Nothing to
seasoned
be
guy,
said, right? How do you top
what can
that?
I say? Who am I? That. So they say, no, the new ones, we want to hear your thoughts first. That's
Like
like
that.
listening to the low rank. That's an old school that was new school.
That's a very old school, right? It's like some tried and true wisdom there.
Wisdom, exactly. Yes.
I like that. I like that. It's I was talking with a friend of mine he does some business coaching, and he was talking about how um listening to those of lower rank is important, because you want to understand what their thinking process is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just giving them the answer, asking them, come up with three solutions that you think might work, and then why
Mm-hmm.
do you think those might work, and what do you think might work the best, and trying to, I think he even called it the holy grail of what is the thinking process. And so, kind of back to this new school, instead of being a command, down from the top, it's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, let's at least understand what they're coming up with, so that I can understand where their thinking process is, and then I actually have more opportunity to influence the thinking process, and hence their development and their growth and their contribution, because I've allowed myself to be open and approachable versus just, you're going to do it my way and you're going to like it kind of attitude.
No, and that's the world we're in. We need the thinking of the young people, and the best leaders ask the right questions. And I like what you said there. They're not only encouraging some new ideas, but they're listening for how the new person thinks differently, and they're open to a different process. And boy, I think the world needs this right now. I think we need all kinds of new thinking on all kinds of new levels, and I think the wisest leaders know how to do that. that stuff takes time and energy. And I realize it's not always practical. And a lot of construction people would say, that's a bunch of hogwash, get it done. What do you mean? I'm not gonna ask this guy questions. I'm going to tell him what the heck to do, or that's often the attitude in the construction world. Can be tough that way, and it's one reason it's one of the slowest to change.
Sure.
It's a dinosaur. It's almost slower than the Catholic Church to change.
Well, I understand. I mean, on one hand, there are things that need to get done, right? Hey, you need to flatten this out so we can put asphalt on it, right? I mean, it's got to be compacted before we, pour the cement, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think, to your point, it's important to understand where people are at and actually to be able to grow as an organization or grow as a team. Being willing to hear people, find out where they're at, and then you can lead them from there. If you don't meet them where they're at, you can't really lead them from there. You can just kind of boss them around until they get sick of you and leave, and you start over.
And so, there is another aspect to the sort of, as I'm thinking, what's needed now in the sort of old school or the senior guy, maybe talking to the younger guy. The guy who's over 50 is a different animal than the guy who's under 25.
For sure.
And this comes up a lot, and there's a lot of tension between the generations. And in general, what I hear is the senior generations, the baby boomer or close to the baby boomer world, have a lot of judgment and difficulty with the younger generations who are on their phone too much, don't want to work hard, don't want to get their hands dirty, want to know too much, wanted too many attaboys. They want lots of praise, right? They want to know how their job contributes to the whole company's mission. I mean, these are some stereotypes, but they're also pretty true. And there's a rank thing in there. And sometimes, even though the 22-year-old doesn't know a tenth of what the 55-year-old guy knows, or the 55-year-old woman knows, and yet the young person, there's a lot of confidence in some of our young people where they will speak up and they will say what they mean. And so it's complex. It's not, there's some nuance to the sort of brand new person who's cautious and careful, right? Some of the young 20-year-olds are very bold and very strong, and they will leave. They will walk off the job and go do DoorDash like my son has done. So that's just a nuance there with the age thing and the generation thing and rank. It gets there's some complexities within it there. It's not so simple.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think honestly, one of the most impactful teachings in your book that I found was, you talk about building trust. And in fact, you say the inability to express empathy for others and ourselves is a significant detriment to our capacity to build trusting relationships. And trusting relationships are required for optimal safety, accountability. And I think that's really what we're getting at with this part of the conversation, is just that whether you're 22 or 62, or you're the boss, or you're the very bottom of we've got to be able to build trust, or we can't do anything, right? We can't build a house, we can't build a road, we can't build an elevator, we can't build a company, or really accomplish anything unless we can build some trust. And I think that's really what this is getting at, is my hope, at least, is that leaders can become more open, more willing to hear and, listen to what's going on, find out where your people are at. Whereas, the younger people, maybe they do need to ask some questions or be heard so that they can develop trust. And then together we can do what we need to do. Obviously the work's got to get done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Trust is key. Super important. There's a Minnesotan, I'm from Minnesota, and there's a Minnesotan named David Horsehager, has made his whole living on the idea of trust, and has built probably one of the most impressive bodies of work and teaching and writing on the concept of trust within organizations. And he's very successful, very, very solid, interesting guy. And I don't know if I quote him or not in my book, but but I look to him as one of the key teachers on something that's so seemingly so obvious, but often missing in some of our cultures, Matt.
Especially if, if you're working for a company that likes to lay off people, right? I mean, I used to be in corporate America, and by the third round of layoffs, I happen to be on that list, but I'm just saying it's hard to trust when no trust has been built. So let's as we kind of wrap up the conversation, what would you say is maybe the number one way you have found to help build that trust?
It's pretty simple in a way, Matt. It's giving your word and keeping it. And when you can't keep it, I mean, if we could give our word and keep it 100% of the time, that's the best way to build trust.
Sure.
But the truth is, you and I are both not always going to be 100% on our word. We're imperfect people. We
Sure.
might accidentally double book and we don't get online together. But the best way, do what you say you're going to do. And when you don't, when there's a breakdown, own the breakdown and say, Matt, I told you I'd be here at 1 o'clock. I forgot all about it. I broke down. Keep the excuse short. Keep the story about what dog chewed up what homework paper super short, and say, I recommit, and then recommit and show up and be there for the person. I think that's one of the best ways to build trust. And then you get all the other messy things about being human thrown in there, that certain people just bother us from the day we meet them. They trigger something in us. So I'd say the one end of the trust pool is give your word and keep it, clean up your breakdowns when you have them. And the deepest end of the trust pool, I would say, is to forgive everyone who's ever hurt you and to be completely clean, or to clean your filter out for the potential bad behavior of others or breakdowns of others. That if somebody says they're going to show up and they don't, it's not personal. I don't, if I'm personally hurt because you miss an appointment with me, I have something to look at. And it's not about Matt Allred missing one appointment because you've made every one. It's about me. So that the deep end of the pool is dealing with our deeper, what some call our broken toes, that old injury, right? And that's often what happens on a job site. They may not be aware, but somebody reminds them of somebody who hurt them. And if you can forgive that someone who hurt you, then the person who shows up the day looking like that person who hurt you and sounding like that person who hurt you has a lot less power. And that's important, I think, for building trust and for creating safety.
That's huge. That's huge. So yeah, really what I'm hearing is, like I say, give your word, keep your word. And when you don't keep your word, own it, apologize. But the other piece is, like I say, deeper, but it's do your work, right? If you're triggered by so-and-so because they remind you of somebody who used to annoy you, then do the deeper work. Look inside, do the forgiveness, do the processes you need to do to get over that, so that doesn't keep working away on you.
And just awareness that deep work is sometimes really difficult and sometimes seemingly impossible. And you use the word annoy you. Sometimes it's a lot worse than annoy you.
For sure.
Somebody was physically beaten, women were raped, men were raped, like that level of stuff happens. That's part of the fabric of life. And it's part of what we somebody who just raises their voice at us and we were yelled at a lot as a kid. That's going to be a painful thing if we haven't dealt with that original pain. Trauma is what it's called. We hear a lot of people talking about heal your trauma, deal with your trauma. I even hear the construction guys talking about, I want to heal my trauma. Like, what? You want to what? All right. Amen, brother. Me too.
We've all got it, right? That's the like you say, it's the fabric of life. We all have stuff. We all have things that have been traumatic, regardless.
That's right.
So
that's right.
We're all in it together. Tom, thank you so much. This has been very enjoyable. I love talking with you. Love your insights and appreciate you being here.
Well, likewise, Matt, you're a super kind man, and I really value what you're doing in the elevator world. We've had a little project together. I wish you ongoing success, and let's connect again soon.
Sounds great. Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening to the Elevator Careers Podcast, sponsored by the Allred Group, a leader in elevator industry recruiting. Please visit our YouTube channel at Elevator Careers or check us out online at elevatorcareers.net. Please like and subscribe, and until next time, stay safe.